Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. On Monday, President Andrzej Duda swore in the new government of Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. Mariusz Błaszczak, as the previous government, took over the Ministry of Defence, as security is one of the most important issues. Konrad Chmioła has more details. Prime Minister Morawiecki's government needs 231 votes to win a vote of confidence. Politics can be about keeping your word. This chamber should deal with issues that are important to the Polish people. Maybe this will create a coalition of Polish issues to which I invite you all. We are keen for the House to take an active interest in matters that are important to the Polish people. Polish issues. Perhaps this will lead to the formation of a coalition of Polish issues, to which I warmly invite everyone. One of the main concerns is military security. The Minister of Defence, Mariusz Błaszczak, is responsible for the continuation of defence policy. The Law and Justice Party intends to continue the programme to expand the number of soldiers in the Polish army to 300,000, including 50,000 soldiers of the Territorial Defence Forces. Before the elections, opposition politicians announced that this target would be halved. There are worrying signals presented even during the election campaign by opposition politicians, signals about breaking contracts, saying that I am ordering too many weapons for the Polish army. No, I don't order too much equipment. This is how much is needed. We need 96 Apache attack helicopters. We need 500 HIMARS launchers. This is the need identified by our army commanders. The draft budget law for 2024 plans to spend 4 to 5% of GDP on defence. Before the elections, the opposition announced that the expansion of the Polish army would not continue on the scale proposed by Law and Justice. The opposition is united by one bond, the anti-law and justice concept. They are prepared to vote against their constituents' interests so as not to support us. Because there are solutions in the decalogue of Polish affairs that have been discussed by the current coalition majority, but were not included in their coalition agreement. The Prime Minister still has 2 weeks to assemble a parliamentary majority. According to constitutional deadlines, the Prime Minister must deliver a programme by the 11th of December at the latest. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki's new government will include both politicians and experts. Unfortunately, the politicians of the new majority are calling for the creation of a smaller army, the abandonment of purchases, and all this when we have a real threat from the east. Experts say that we will have 2 to 10 years to prepare, because Russia will rebuild its military potential and will then be in a position to threaten Poland. This year, 4% of GDP, or almost 140 billion zloty, will be spent on defence. The budget financed the purchase of United States M1A1 Abrams tanks, South Korean K2 tanks and K9 howitzers, as well as Apache helicopters. NATO foreign ministers gathered in Brussels on Tuesday to discuss support for Ukraine in its war against Russia's invasion, as both the United States and the European Union struggle to agree on further military aid. A $60 billion US military aid package proposed by the Biden administration is in limbo because of opposition from some Republicans in Congress. Administration officials have expressed confidence that they will get the package through, saying a majority of Republicans and Democrats in Congress still back support for Kyiv.
We will be strongly reaffirming our support for Ukraine as it continues to face Russia's war of aggression. We will be looking to the summit next year in Washington to celebrate the 75th anniversary of NATO, but not just celebrate that anniversary, continue to carry the alliance forward, including with the commitments that its members are making to our collective defence.
Meanwhile, a proposal by the European Union's foreign policy chief to allocate up to 20 billion euros over 4 years for military aid to Ukraine has run into resistance among the bloc's member states, which would have to provide the cash. Germany will reach NATO's 2% of gross domestic product target for military spending in 2024, Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said at a NATO meeting in Brussels on Tuesday. Baerbock also called for Sweden's accession to NATO, saying it was more than overdue. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said he expects Turkey and Hungary to ratify Sweden's NATO membership without further delay.
We have underlined, especially with regard to Ukraine, that we are not only keeping up our military support for Ukraine's self-defense, but that we are increasing it by 8 billion euros. And we're making clear here also at the NATO meeting in Brussels with the NATO-Ukraine Forum that the security and the peace in Ukraine is also the insurance for peace in Europe. And this is why we, Germany, as all our other partners, are keeping up and increasing our support for Ukraine, because Ukraine is not only defending the peace for its own people, but defending the peace in Europe.
Finland will close its entire border with Russia to travellers for the next 2 weeks in a bid to halt the unusually large flow of asylum seekers to the Nordic nation, the government said on Tuesday. Some 900 asylum seekers from nations including Kenya, Morocco, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria and Yemen have entered Finland from Russia in November, an increase from less than one a day previously, according to the Finnish border guard.
Our aim is that the exceptional situation at the eastern border of Finland returns back to normal as soon as possible. We don't accept any attempts to undermine our national security.
Potential trafficked immigrants are still arriving in northwestern Russia despite Finland's restrictive measures. There are arrivals from several different countries. The assessment of the border guard and other authorities is that this will probably intensify even more. Today, the government has decided to close all border crossings on the eastern border. The short-term complete closure of the eastern border is a necessary and proportionate measure to stop this phenomenon. Helsinki says Moscow is funneling people to the border in retaliation for its decision to increase defence cooperation with the United States, a charge the Kremlin denies. Finland infuriated Russia early this year when it joined NATO, ending decades of military non-alignment as a result of the war in Ukraine. Finland last week shut all but one of its border posts to travellers from Russia, keeping open only the northernmost crossing, the remote Raja-Jooseppi station, located in the Arctic. The border station will remain open on Wednesday before closing until December the 13th, the government said. MEP Jacek Saryusz-Wolski has been awarded the Morawiecki Prize. The weekly Gazeta Polska honoured him for warning against changes to the European Union treaties that challenge the sovereignty of member states. Morawiecki was a Polish patriot, journalist and politician who founded Gazeta Polska in 1826. The Morawiecki Prize, the Patriot from the November Uprising, is one of the most important distinctions for patriotically minded people. He was a role model of a Polish patriot. I also take it as an obligation because the fight for Poland's independence in the European Union continues. Jacek Saryusz-Wolski was already negotiating in 1990, and I remember this because the government of Jan Olszewski was being formed at that time, and Jacek Saryusz-Wolski was negotiating our agreements with the European Economic Community in a very firm and favourable manner. Unfortunately, that government fell. Had it succeeded in completing its work, our relations with the European Union would look much better today. Jacek Saryusz-Wolski has been committed to defending Polish sovereignty where it is most threatened, in the place where the partition and destruction of nation-states is being planned, namely the European Union. They want to build what they call a superstate. Jacek said that this idea is certainly not super, because it means making smaller countries dependent on Germany. His actions are already having an effect. The politicians of the member states are finding out that an attack on the independence of the peoples of the European Union members is being prepared behind their backs. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.